As a channel that focuses a lot on Microsoft's latest attempt at a smartphone, the Surface Duo, I get a ton of comments from people who might be former Windows Phone enthusiasts. Heck, a lot of them are still using Windows phones to this day. And because of that, I get a lot of comments lamenting the fact that Microsoft has made that switch to Android and the fact that they don't even offer a normal slab style phone. A lot of people would love to see Microsoft still making their own mobile operating system, not just on Surface Duo, but on a more standard phone as well. Now, there are rumors, there is word abound that Microsoft's long-term plan for Android on Duo was to make it look a lot more like Windows than it currently does. Obviously, with Android 12, they did make some small moves in that direction, but what I've been told is that they planned on, at least with Duo 3, taking that to a much further extent. In this video, though, we're going to be taking a look at a video from AR4789, which, by the way, link to their video in the description. When you're done here, go watch the full video on their channel to give them the click and the watch time that they deserve for making this. They have put together a concept of what Windows 11 Mobile might look like, and I'm going to watch this and react to it and tell you guys what I think. Full disclosure, I'm an Android person. I never daily drove a Windows phone device. So that is the perspective I am coming from. So perhaps this might be interesting. Perhaps it might be something that some of you, ladies and gentlemen, watching this video might watch and just think, man, I really wish this was a real thing. I don't know. I don't know how good this looks. It's got almost 250,000 views. So I'm assuming that it's probably pretty darn good. So with that being said, let's take a look at it. All right, so we're starting off here with, this is really, really well made. I just want to say that straight away. So they're kind of layering things down, and we kind of have a top here that is not all that dissimilar from Android, right? With your clock, your status bar kind of things, notifications up top. You have a very Windows 11 themed widget up here for the weather, and then icons that are very Android-esque, if I do say so myself. You also kind of have like a folder, but it's a different looking folder, and I actually really like that. That looks better than the folders on Surface Duo currently, and maybe even on Android as well. I like how they're grouped with big icons and then like a cluster of smaller icons as well. This is a very nice looking UI. Of course, there's another widget there for playing music, it appears. More icons, looking very good so far. Very similar to Android, but with some Windows 11 stuff going on there. Let's jump forward and see. So this is the taskbar that we currently have on Windows 11 when you're using a device that is like a touchscreen and you've removed the keyboard. The taskbar can shrink down, and I'm assuming they're about to swipe up on it, yes, and reveal sort of a taskbar down below, and that is exactly what we have. So this is probably going to launch the start menu, probably your multitasking, it's like your recent apps, and then like a search function of some sort. And yes, we are getting something that looks very there. That's exactly the Windows 11 start menu. That is exactly what that is. Your recommended stuff down below, your apps up top. That's exactly the same as the start menu on Windows 11. That makes a lot of sense, and I actually think that would be fairly usable on this on a mobile device. This is basically an app drawer, but with some extra things in it. So no problem that you can switch to all apps. Yeah, they've just taken the Windows 11 start menu and brought it over. This is smart though. This would totally work. So it looks like here they just swiped down, I'm assuming, from the top to get to this little screen here. And I'm not really sure what to make of that. File Explorer. Okay, no, so this wasn't a swipe down. This was just simply the File Explorer, which looks pretty good. And this actually is reminiscent of some of the File Explorers on Android as well. And of course, you've got tabs. Okay, so this is an interesting concept here. So not only do they have tabs, but this is tabs between the File Explorer and settings. Is that what we're showing here? So like system applications, being able to tab between them. That's a pretty interesting idea. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. It's a little bit of a different idea, right? Because with Android and other mobile operating systems, these would be separate tasks. And you would swipe up and hold to go to your recents and switch between them like that. But it appears, unless I'm missing something, they continue to tab between these different things. Of course, theming there, dark mode, all of this stuff does make sense. That looks quite nice, guys. I think that looks very, very good. Of course. Of course, we've got the blue screen of death. And then where would a Windows operating system be without a blue screen of death, of course? Looks like now they're just showing off ideas for different widgets, and these look pretty good. They've got sort of the theming of Windows 11 in there. Of course, Microsoft could literally pull a lot of widgets straight out of the new widget panel on Windows 11 and throw them on there, and that would work just fine as well. Again, this looks very similar to Android in a lot of ways. I think that was a swipe down from the top. Yes. Okay, and this is interesting as well because it does look a bit like the quick settings on Windows 11, but it also does look a lot like Android. This is really interesting because as much as I thought this was going to be leaning more Windows, this is leaning a lot Android. This is kind of similar to what I had envisioned from what people told me that Microsoft planned to do with Android on Surface Duo 3. This might be like weirdly closer than people might realize to reality, what Microsoft actually wanted to do. I'm not saying this is exactly what that was going to look like, but it's definitely kind of running that line of Android Windows, which is very, very interesting to me. Let's see what kind of gestures we have. That's going to be interesting. So a swipe from the side to get into your recents. And of course, you can add extra desktops as well. That's interesting. That would be a bit confusing for Android users because we're used to swipes from the side being back, of course. And then it looks like, of course, we have the gesture to, as they're saying, lock, or I'm assuming, unlock the taskbar, swipe up to expand it, maybe would be the way I would describe that. And we've got another blue screen of death. LOL. Very, very funny. Guys, I think this was actually pretty well done and a pretty interesting concept. And who knows, if Surface Duo 3 ever does see the light of day, maybe, just maybe, you'll be getting a version of Android that looks a whole heck of a lot more like Windows than we currently have. Do you guys remember when that weird Windows 12 leak thing happened where there was like an image in the middle of a presentation that had a totally different UI? Maybe, just maybe, that's going to have some influence on where Microsoft's vision of Android is going to take us in the future. Again, this is all going to come down to if that actually ever does happen, if this device ever sees the light of day, but it might be something to keep in mind. That might be part of the vision forward for Microsoft in particular on their mobile devices. And just to touch on that very briefly, I do think that's probably the right approach. And my reasoning is quite simple. When it comes to a phone, there's one really crazy important thing that you have to have, and that is an app store full of applications. And if they tried to make their own operating system again, they'd run into the same problem that they ran into again, the same problem that killed WebOS, that killed BlackBerry's last attempt. It's the lack of apps. All the apps are on iOS and on Android. So by making the device run Android, they already have all the apps ready to go right there. So take Android, which is open source and extremely flexible and customizable, and add the Windows 11 stuff you want on top of that foundation. That way you still have all the access to the apps that everyone needs. I know there are some people that will say, I don't care about those apps. I want the foundation to be Windows, and I get that. And to you, I must only say one thing. I am sorry, that phone is not going to exist. But you have to recognize that the vast majority of people, when they open up their phone, they want to be able to go to the store and download the apps that they are used to using. They want them to be readily accessible, easily accessible right there. And that's why Microsoft really had no other choice but to go the direction that they're going. At any rate, like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to drop a link to the video we just watched together down below. Go click on it and let it play all the way through. If you made it this far in my video, you got to do the same for them to make sure they're getting credit for that view. I don't want to just have people watch it here and not watch it there and they get nothing out of this, because that is a rude thing to do. Guys, if you want more content like this, subscribe before you go. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.